Good morning, good evening, good everything in between, wherever you are. Welcome to the podcast, episode 6. I am your host, the ever so loquacious and bodacious Jimbo Bernicki. And to my right, I have the co-host with the most, the always thoughtful and insightful Mr. Gabe Lerman. How are you doing today, my fine Torontonia friend?
Your province is on fire and sending its smoke to me. I'm
Listen,
staying indoors.
all of them are on fire. Most of them are on fire. It's not my fault. You can't prove it. And to my left, I have my favorite color commentator and yours, the ever so eloquent Mr. Michael Bealey. How are things doing for you today in the Keystone State?
It's hazy out here and it's all your fault.
Aïe, 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 aïe! Oh mon Dieu, mais sacrément, si tu vas vers la Québec, c'est pour moi aujourd'hui.
I don't know what you said, but it sounds evil.
Yeah, it tends to. That is how it works. So we have found ourselves through 1 week of interleague play, or 2 weeks now, I guess you could say. It feels like, I mean, with not being able to watch all the games on Pacific League TV, it feels like it's a lot longer than it's actually been. So now that we are through our first week of interleague play, the Buffaloes lead the pack with 5 teams hot on their tails, and like it's coming down to the wire. I think we have a very very tight race going on through the interleague section. I am very surprised by how well the Swallows are doing because they came in on a hot losing streak, but now they've finally picked up. And the Ham Fighters, they've also been doing really well. Has there been any surprises for you guys so far this interleague session?
One thing I always look for is how are the teams in the other league using the designated hitter, because they don't really do that over there. They're the only top pro league left in the world that does not use the DH. It's a small sample size, but so far this year, Central League designated hitters are sporting a 237 batting average and a 290 on base percentage. That's not ideal. I mean, especially when you see them trot out guys who are actually good fielders like Yohei Oshima from the Dragons or Adam Walker from the Giants and putting them in DH for reasons, compared to more typical DH candidates like Domingo Santana from the Swallows or Sho Nakata from the Giants or Tyler Austin from the Bay Stars. I've noticed this as a typical thing. CL teams just do not stock enough sluggers, or they do not seek out players who really do not have a glove and can just swing the bat really well. Like, why not just sign one and keep them in the minors just for this interleague period? Because otherwise, you might as well just send the pitcher out, for Pete's sake.
I don't know. I mean, I think when you think about the CL's format with the pitchers and everything, there's probably a lot of value in terms of how you switch players around. But on the other hand, you do actually make a solid point. For me, if I'm a Central League team, I would try to bring in a guy who's a slugger to replace my pitchers more often. Because look, like, you may not get a hit, but at least maybe you might get a home run or a slugging hit. That would be ideal. For me, so far through Interleague, I am shocked at how badly the Tigers have been, all things considered. I mean, I thought, they're still sort of middle of the pack, but their literal first inning against the Lions, they jumped out ahead of them, and they are record-wise overall by far the best team in all of MPB. Yet still, this interleague period's been a big struggle for them. It's sort of kind of shown a bit of a weakness on their side. And I've been pretty impressed. Again, I mentioned earlier, but I'm really happy the Fighters are doing so well. It's good to see them sort of trouncing the Central League opposition so far.
And we'll get into them more when we go around the horn. There's been a couple of neat things that I've been able to pick up in regards to the Fighters and watching them play. They're fun in a good way now.
Mm-hmm.
My headline, as always, is keeping track of career milestones. 3 of them leapt out to me over the last week. First off, I mentioned previously Naoki Miyanishi, a reliever for the Fighters, has been moving up the leaderboard on appearances as a pitcher. He now sits 6th all-time in NPB history with his 830th mound appearance earlier today. He's continuing to impress this season, too. Age is not slowing him down. 1.56 ERA over 17 and a third innings pitched, and a perfect 11 for 11 in holds. He passes the legendary strikeout machine, Yutaka Enatsu, who started out as a starter and then moved to the bullpen as he aged. Enatsu, and this shocked me, won the Central League and Pacific League MVPs 2 seasons apart in 1979 and 1981. So Miyanishi is getting into some rarefied air there. Also,
Wow.
a hearty bonsai to Gosuke Kato, the reverse posting infielder, We mentioned him last week and said, hey, he got his first NPB hit. Guess what? He's now set the franchise record for consecutive games to start a career with a hit for the Fighters. 9 in a row. The previous record was set by Shuzo Aono back in 1962 when the team was the Toei Flyers and they played in Tokyo. Kato now sports a totally unsustainable 417, 475, 833 slash line for the Fighters.
Hey, never say unsustainable. You never know what might happen.
And finally, congrats to Ginjiro Sumitani, who played in his 1500th NPB game on Sunday. He entered the game as a pinch hitter in Rakuten's 5-2 loss to the Swallows at Meiji Jingu Stadium. Sumitani started his career with the Lions after being drafted by them in 2006 and had previously played for the Giants before joining the Eagles a season or two ago. Those of you who have watched the most recent Midnight Matinee, I'm pretty sure I spoke about him then too.
So my news for the week, though, is veteran pitcher and PL alum Hideaki Wakui, currently pitching for Chinichi, is looking for his 27th win as a starting pitcher in Interleague play. In his next start, if he wins, he will be tied with Yakult's Masanori Ishikawa for the current all-time wins in Interleague as a starting pitcher. However, if he loses, he will have the unfortunate milestone of that being his 150th loss on the first team. And some background with Wakui, if you're not familiar with him, he did used to be in Pacific League. He was a high school standout at Yokohama Senior High School, the exact same high school that Daisuke Matsuzaka went to. He was a first-round pick for Seibu in the 2004 draft, played with Seibu from 2004 to 2013, signed with Lotte, his hometown team, in the 2013 offseason, where he played until the end of 2019, where they traded him to Rakuten for the cash considerations, the ultimate player. He pops up everywhere, cash considerations.
The ultimate player. I like that, actually.
He's in every league. He's all over. From 2019 to 2022, he was with Rakuten, and then he was traded again in the 2022 offseason to Chinichi for Toshiki Abe. He is an 09 Sawamura Award winner, 08 Climax Series MVP, 3-time PL wins leader, 4-time Gold Glove Award, 6-time All-Star, currently has 1,958 strikeouts, will probably hit the 2,000 mark this season, so that's another milestone to look out for.
And if you're wondering how 27 can be a wins leader for Interleague play, listen to our previous episodes where we go into the history of Interleague and how it was a recent invention and how it's all clumped together in just these 3 weeks.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Hey, my name's Shane, and I swear, I'm a real consumer, just like you. So I just replaced all my expensive shorts with...
What are you doing in here? I thought I threw you out already.
I gotta go, bye.
How do they keep getting in here? That's the third advertiser I've thrown out today. When you subscribe to Pacific League TV, there's no ads. Nothing in between innings, nothing for a pitching change. You get to see all the action on the field. And of course, you also get full archives going back to 2011. All the baseball you could ever want to watch, and nobody trying to convince you to buy some clothing brand you've never heard of. 1450 yen per month. That's like $10 in today's exchange rate. And you get all that and no ads. Okay, but for real, who's letting these guys in here? Jim? Gabe? Is it any of you? Well, it's not me.
So, as we like to do every week around here, we have a little bit of a closer look at how each team is doing individually from top to bottom through the league. And starting this week at the top of the league, we have the Orix Buffaloes. Take it away, Gabe.
The Buffaloes have gone 4-2 in their last 6 since we last checked in on them, including holding the Dragons to only 3 runs over a 3-game series at their place in Nagoya. Remember what I said about the Buffaloes using Interleague as a springboard to win the pennant? Here they go again. An interesting thing I caught is that Taishi Hirooka faced off against the player he was traded for, Kohei Suzuki, in a game with the Giants earlier today at Kyocera Dome in Osaka. Suzuki got the better of Hirooka in that matchup. The Giants held the Buffaloes to 4 hits, but one of those was a 2 RBI double from Tomoya Mori to stake Yoshinobu Yamamoto to a lead, and you don't give YY a lead and expect him to lose it. YY threw 8 innings of 4-hit ball with 6 strikeouts, and Soichiro Yamazaki, who was a starter last season, got the save, striking out the side around a single. Left-handed pitcher from Okinawa, Hiroya Miyagi, threw his second shutout of the year, a 2-hitter with no walks and 10 strikeouts against the Dragons on Sunday. Incredibly, for the first time in 28 years, there were 3 other pitchers that day with 10 or more strikeouts. One, as you'd expect, was Hiroki Sasaki. And the other was Hiroto Saiki of the Tigers. And the third was the guy Miyagi was pitching against, Hiroto Takahashi of the Dragons. So between Miyagi, Yamamoto, Shunpeita Yamashita, and Taisuke Yamaoka, good luck to anyone facing the Buffaloes in a postseason series. That's four stud starters right there.
Yeah, honestly, this interleague session has really showed me that the Buffaloes are probably the team to beat, because for as good as the Marines are and as good as the Hawks are, I feel like there's a weird imbalance where the Buffaloes have such a unified, balanced attack going on that that is going to be hard to outlast through the season and hard to face in a playoff series.
The pitching in particular stands out. And speaking of rookie pitchers, someone's getting his NPB debut in the rotation tonight. A lefty by the name of Ryuhei Sotani will be getting the call for the Buffaloes. Not too many lefties throwing mid-90 fastballs in today's NPB, so it'll be interesting to see how he fares. One last note for the Buffaloes. Back on June 1st, rookie right fielder Tokumasa Chano hit his first career NPB home run, and it was a grand slam when the Buffaloes walloped the Carp 9-2 at Kyocera Dome to win the series.
And I believe that brings us over to the second place team of the Pacific League, a team that's been struggling through this interleague session. I don't think it's unfair to say. The Chiba Lotte Marines. Mike, what do you have on them this week?
Second place, 2 games back. My smugness is gone. My happiness is gone. My hair is grayed. I don't know how we're going to come back from all that.
Oh, it's a long season. That's my answer.
No, life is over now. Anyway, they're 3-6-1 in their last 10. Remember what we said, Gabe touched on in last week about using Interleague as a way to get ahead in your own division. The Marines are not doing that.
Yeah, to say the least.
They're just not. Blown out by the Swallows of all teams. The Swallows, who had a 11 plus game losing streak. Mima was the starting pitcher, Manabu Mima. He had a Mima-esque performance, but the people that came after him in that game didn't help anything. Mima gave up 4 runs, which is not what you don't want your starter to give up any runs.
Yeah, that's not really a typical Mima performance.
That's doable. You can come back from that. That's fine. And then Daiki Iwashita gave up 2 runs, didn't help. And then Akira Yagi gave up 4 in the 9th, didn't help. In other news, keep talking about it. Good things are happening. Polanco now has 7 home runs and 23 RBIs to lead the team.
Did you see that home run he hit today?
Dude, it was
off
destroyed.
The roof.
So keep making fun of him. He keeps hitting more home runs. He might be listening to us. I have my doubts, but it seems to be working. But one thing I do want to talk about, as always, is Sasaki's latest start. It is his second start since coming back from his blister issue. He had a no-hitter going through 5 innings, and in the 6th inning, he gave up a hit. Overall, he had 10 strikeouts in 6 innings. Typical Sasaki performance, only gave up 1 run. But what was weird from what I saw was he was really pitching wildly. It didn't really seem like how he usually does. Like there was a couple of pass balls, a couple of wild pitches. Like there was more walks than I'm used to seeing. I mean, the umpire, he was getting notably frustrated with the umpire at Cochin Stadium. You could just see on his face, like there was a couple of the broadcast doesn't have that strike zone on screen.
Right.
Or those like 3D StatCast, whatever strike zones. And there was a couple of pitches where even without that, you're just kind of like, yeah, that's strike 3. And the umpire just turned in the ball 4. And I think that really frustrated him to the point where he just kind of lost command a little bit. We don't have an umpire scorecard where we can see like that crazy little strike zone where you're like, well, how does that look like a strike zone to an umpire? But something was going on there and he was not happy about it. And I think that just threw him off his game. As much as you can throw him off his game. I mean, 1 run in 6 innings, 10 Ks. It's not the end of the world, but
that's very funny. Just to frame it like that, like, oh man, he was really off. He only struck out 10 guys over 6 innings.
It's like that fake news article about Ohtani throwing with his left hand because he was bored.
I mean,
look, I'd believe it.
You just have to adjust your scale when you're dealing with Hiroki Sasaki. You just have to adjust your expectations accordingly.
Exactly.
Alrighty, and so that brings us around to the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, who have had a very exciting interleague session, I would say. It seems like it's really like they either lose at the last moment or win at the last moment from the height of ecstasy, like winning today's game over the Bay Stars, like right in the last seconds, literally the last like pitch possible, basically. And then sometimes total heartbreak, like when they lost Shinichi last weekend, right in the 8th inning. It's real highs and lows for the Hawks right now. But hey, 3-3 over the last week. It's been an exciting interleague. Again, I'm not saying good or bad. I'm saying exciting. They are still in the top half of the interleague, and it looks like it's going to work out for them. And what's interesting is that over this week, facing the interleague, I predicted at the beginning of this session that it would be the bats that would carry them and the pitching that would have to sort of catch up. And I've been wrong, apparently. The bats are still producing, but there have been some struggles. But the pitching has really shown up, especially the bullpen. I brought him up last week and probably the week before, but Levan Moinello, the Cuban left-hander, every time I see him pitch, I'm impressed. And every single time I see him pitch after that, I'm more impressed. He gets better and better. He had an immaculate inning today. 9 pitches, 3 strikeouts, easy peasy, like total dominance. And it's, and then they still have Roberto Osuna right after that. So the bullpen is really carrying its weight. Like, because the starting pitching can be rough, it's, not an automatic win every time. But with the way they hit and the way that bullpen is, you better hope you don't come down to the end of a game against the Hawks, because they will usually pounce on you. Now, on a more depressing note, I just have to point out, because I was watching the game today and the broadcast focused on it, it was really sad to see. They showed all the players of the Hawks lineup, all the averages lined up, and Tomoya Masaki is having a rough start to the season. As of today's game, he's averaging 0.50. It's just, you just look at all the stats up there. Some of the Hawks batters are over 300. Most of them are in the mid 200s. And then you have one guy who's not even in the 100s. He is in the absolute doldrums of the 0.5 class. It's not great. And he's only had about 25 at bats so far this season, but it's rough to sort of include someone like that. I mean, I'm sure his defense is good. I'm sure there's a reason they're putting him in, but it is hard to see someone batting that poorly in a lineup.
Fun little trivia in regards to immaculate innings. Levan Moinello's immaculate inning earlier today was the first one in the Pacific League since Levan Moinello's in 2018.
Honestly, that doesn't. The only thing about that stat that surprises me is that he's still pitching in the NPB, because he's got such fire. I don't get why a major league team hasn't picked him up yet. Like, he throws hard.
So the reason why is because he's Cuban.
Oh, well, I mean, there's Cubans in the MLB.
Yes, but they have to defect. They have to escape across the border. Remember, there was that huge controversy about one of the Dragons' Cuban players defecting during the World Baseball Classic. The Cuban national team and the Hawks in particular are on good speaking terms. They've also been
interesting.
The employer of Yuris Belgracial and Alfredo Despagne. So it's not uncommon for the Hawks to be a home for Cuban players, and for Japan to be a home for Cuban players.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because Despagne, especially, was a player I looked into, and I was really impressed with his. He was a player I noticed a lot last season, and now that I think about it, it's like, yeah, he didn't defect. He's just sort of part of the system. Unlike, you think of like Yasiel Puig or Aroldis Chapman, for example.
Or for another Pacific League example, Oscar Colas, who joined the Hawks as a registered player, then defected in 2020 and is now part of the Chicago White Sox.
Interesting. Okay. Well, the more you know. There we go. There's a mini sort of half-hearted Gabe's History Corner, mostly based on my misunderstanding of a situation, which brings us around to the nippon-ham Fighters.
Yeah, the Fighters were the first team that the Swallows beat in 13 games back on Thursday, but hey, they won a series against their old Tokyo Dome roommates, the Giants, over the weekend, before dropping today's game to the Carp. So 3-3 since we last saw them. Interesting injury news, some good, some bad. The bad news first, hoping for a speedy recovery for catcher Ariel Martinez, who was hit in the hand in today's game. Martinez has had 7 home runs with a 246, 349, 446 slash line in 45 games. Hopefully nothing is broken. He had to leave the game due to the hit by pitch. But on the other side, first baseman Kotaro Kiyomiya is starting his rehab to return from his left oblique injury. Kiyomiya injured himself back on April 20th on a swing, and his return will add some more pop back to the fighters' lineup. Part of the reason why they have so much pop is you can't pitch around Chusei Manami anymore. The 23-year-old, as of June 5th, sits first in the Pacific League in doubles with 20, first in home runs with 11, first in slugging percentage with 568, and tied for first with 32 RBI. It all amounts to a 197 WRC plus, second in the Pacific League. And WRC plus is a nominal stat. 100 is league average. So Manami is batting twice as good as your average NPB player. And he can only get better at age 23.
If I could interject very quickly, no one has impressed me more this season than he has. Like, he was totally not on my radar. I noticed him early in the season, and he's just exploded ever since, to say the least. Like, I cannot believe how well he's playing right now.
The plate discipline is a big improvement. I remember last season he was striking out an awful lot. The power was there, but the plate discipline wasn't. Now I think he's top 10 in on-base percentage. So I don't know if it's the extra protection, so you have to bat to Manami, or he's improved that element of his game. Either way, it's great news for nippon-ham fans. The other reason why the fighters have been able to get out of the basement is their defense. According to SIS Baseball on Twitter, the fighters are the best NPB team in defensive runs saved. That's another sabermetric stat at the catcher position, third base, left field, center field, and is second best in right field behind the Seibu Lions. I mean, y'all have seen Aito and Raito in the top 20 plays. You kind of could guess that Seibu would be topping that category. The Lions are also the best defensive team at shortstop, with Lotte in third. And given that the Lions have the human highlight reel, Sosuke Genda, who should be back by now, as well as the tiny highlight reel, Ryosuke Kodama, this all tracks.
Yeah, and that is a perfectly smooth transition over to the Seibu Lions, who, listen, just like the Hawks, they went 3-3 this week, and it may sound underwhelming, but it's actually, in my opinion, much more impressive because they were reeling before the Interleague play started. And then, out of nowhere, they pick up a series win over the Hanshin Tigers, which is, to me, singularly the most impressive, out of nowhere part of the Interleague session we've had so far. I cannot believe the Seibu Lions won against a team that on paper seemed a lot better than them. Shooter Tonosaki is continuing to be the batting leader of the whole team. He's just the heart of the offense. The 270 average may not sound like a lot, but if the Lions need it really badly right now, and his 815 OPS between his slugging and on-base percentage is pretty good. When it comes down to it, the Lions just need a little bit of pitching. They get the occasional great outing from Taima and Wakamoto, and then you have the hitting. Sometimes it's someone other than Tonosaki, but Tonosaki really is the heart and middle soul of that offense right now. And that brings us over to the basement dwellers, the unfortunate, though not at the bottom of the interleague table, Rakuten Golden Eagles. Take it away, Mike.
As it says on my notes as the header, it says Rakuten are Rakuten. 4-6 in their last 10, still in last place. Really, once again, the plan of using Interleague to catch up, as stated by their manager and GM, is not working. Of the 7 Interleague games they've played, they've won 2 of them. Their worst loss was 3-8-11, losing against DNA on June 1st. And they had a 5-9 loss against Yakult on June 2nd. So I wonder if all the Yakult girls are going to get a raise. If you know what a Yakult girl is, they go door to door selling Yakult drinks. Fun fact. They won today against Hanshin, beating them 4-1. Right now, their star players, mainly their pitchers Takahiro Norimoto and Masahiro Tanaka, are just really what you just watch their starts and be done with it. I mean, they can still turn it around, but I feel like I've been saying that every episode so far. I mean, they could go on a 10-game winning streak and then a 2-game losing streak, then another 10-game winning streak and suddenly be third place or something. But try to appreciate Takahiro Norimoto and Masahiro Tanaka for what they're doing. And the future looks bright, however.
I would just like to interject that, like, your appraisal of, they could win 20 games over 23 games and they'd still be in 4th place. That's rough. That's not a great place to be in the world.
It's better than where you were. However, the future looks bright. If you have a Pacific League TV subscription, you should. You get all the minor league games, and Rakuten leads the Eastern League. Just went on a 6-game winning streak, and they're in first place in the Eastern League. So not all is dark with Rakuten.
Yeah,
If
that's
memory
pretty cool.
serves, the Tigers won the farm championship last year, and look at how they're doing now.
Mhm.
Not saying that minor league success always translates to major league success, but it isn't a bad signal. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, for sure. It can't be a bad signal. I mean, by default, right? I mean, if your minor league team won every game of the year, that can't be a bad thing.
True.
You want the little ones to do well.
Speaking of Pacific League TV, you may get stumped by the occasional Japanese term they use. That's why we are continuing to release the How to Speak Pacific League series to help you understand Japanese baseball lingo. Please have a listen.
How to Speak Pacific League. Lesson 3. Home Runs. There are no shortage of sluggers in the Pacific League, like Yuki Yanagita, Hotaka Yamakawa, or Yutaro Sugimoto. You may hear some of these terms on Pacific League TV in reference to their work. First, home run is a loan word, pronounced homuran. Loan words are also used for tsuran and suriran homuran. However, a grand slam is called a manrui homuran. Man meaning full, rui meaning base. You will also probably hear the announcer's exclamations on the ball leaving the field of play, such as, "Hai, itta." Yes, it's left. Or, "Hai, irimashita." Yes, it got out.
And so that brings us around to our weekly segment of checking out how former Japanese players are doing stateside. Gabe, take it away. How are we looking this week?
You remember I spoke about Yusei Kikuchi and Kodai Senga last week. Well, turns out they played against each other in the last week. Back on June 4th, Yusei Kikuchi went 5 innings, giving up 2 earned runs with 8 strikeouts, while Kodai Senga failed to get out of the third, giving up 3 earned on 4 hits and 5 walks. It's only the 3rd time in their careers that Yusei and Kodai have gone head-to-head, which, given the fact that they were in the same league for so long, I guess the Lions and the Hawks, they never quite lined up exactly.
Yeah, that's actually extremely surprising when you put it like that. Interesting.
And the other, y'all know how much I adore Masataka Yoshida despite playing for the Red Sox. Sorry, Boston fans, I'll stop you from catching strays. This is something that's incredible in terms of his start to his MLB career, where he's going to be for the next 4 seasons. As per JP Long on Twitter, Yoshida has almost as many multi-hit games as strikeouts this season, 21-23. And here's the historical impressiveness. Only 2 players this century have reached base 85 or more times and struck out 25 or fewer times in their first 50 career games. Yoshida's one of them. Can either of you guess who the other is?
Albert Pujols.
Nope. Michael?
Japanese player or just player in general?
Just player in general.
I don't know. Ty Cobb?
Not this century.
Oh.
But it is a Japanese player, and it's a Pacific League alumni. Ichiro back in 2001. So that's the kind of company Yoshida's playing with right now. We warned you. Every single Japanese baseball fan warned you. Yoshida was this good.
But how can a guy who's 5'9" do that? That makes no sense. But all the other GMs were laughing at the Red Sox guy.
Something about me wants to bring up Dustin Pedroia again.
No. We ragged on Boston enough last week. This week they get to puff their chests and say, "Look how smart we are."
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the conclusion of today's episode. Jimbo, Mike, as always, thank you so much for being a part of this and for driving us to a conclusion. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all that YouTube-y stuff. We'll be back next week, possibly with some new surprises. Have a great week, everyone, and stay tuned to Pacific League TV.
Bye-bye.